On this week's episode, it's good. It's good to be a bad boy this weekend. When comic book and film superhero universes collide, and it's time for some carpool karaoke. All this and more as we once again delve into me, the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source and the Lakers Fast Break and Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Thank you so much for listening to all of our great programs. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He's our own singing diva of Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to check out what he's doing today at popculturecosmos at yahoo.com, popculturecosmos.wordpress.com, and also his great show, Topicocalypse, and his awesome book, Congratulations, You Suck. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
What up? How's it going?
Well, right now it's going okay until I probably turn off our entire audience, and also our friendship gets destroyed in the latter half of the show, because I'm going to do some singing with some carpool karaoke type deal with Roxy Mobile Karaoke from Pepcom coming up later in the program. Also as well, we have interviews with PopSockets and also as well Oral-B. Those are three great interviews we have on tap from CES and Pepcom. They're going to be sprinkled in throughout the program. Plus also as well, we've got Jessica Boggs with part 2 of her January TV update. And Josh and I on the back end, if he can still stomach it, who knows after hearing my voice. We're going to talk about DC and Marvel. Both their universes started getting a little bit closer together with a TV show that with some TV that happened over the course of the past week, but also as well an interesting trailer that came out by Sony as well. So we're going to talk about the DC and Marvel universes coming a little bit closer together coming up later in the program, and whether or not Josh and I like it or not. But first, my friend, it was a great weekend. It exceeded expectations. Bad Boys 3, I'll tell you what, a lot of things that went on there. Bad Boys 3, it exceeded expectations at the box office. Looks like over the course of the 3-day weekend, actually 4-day if you include Friday, it's going to earn about $70 million, which is well above the expectations that are out there. And you know what? I'm going to give kudos to Troy once again from the Discover Community Network. He said he is telling us that we should have more faith in a film like that, bringing in an audience. I kind of disagree with him a little bit, because I thought anytime you're dealing with nostalgia, most of these nostalgia things, most of these nostalgia acts, these projects, these reboots, these films that have come out after so many years with a sequel and whatnot, they have a tendency not to go ahead and hit its target audience. But this looks like it did. It's actually even sparked, according to the Hollywood trade papers, Sony saying, you know what, we're going to go ahead and start work on a 4th one. So another Bad Boys movie could be in the works. I know the script is already being drawn up as we speak. So I hear you, man. So I want to hear from you, your thoughts on Bad Boys 3. Why was it such a big success? Because you and I are so down on another nostalgia project after another, that it gets to the point where we're not sure which nostalgia will work with audiences and which ones won't.
I don't know. Like, this is a mystery to me. Like, I haven't actually read any of the reviews yet, but it seems like, we were wrong about this. Like, I didn't exactly predict that it was going to bomb, but I just said I didn't imagine it doing well. And, looks like I was wrong about this. So I don't know what it is. Like, these nostalgia films, it's a 50-50 chance, and there is no predicting it at all, because, Bad Boys 1 and 2, while they were not critically acclaimed, but they were enjoyed by fans of action films and fans of that genre of film. I didn't see this happening. Like, kind of came out of nowhere. So I don't know why it did well. Again, I haven't read a lot about it, but the fact that Sony is already greenlighting a sequel either shows that they're desperate for their next hit, or this is a property that they truly believe in. And if that's the case, why did it take so long to make? And again, with Bad Boys 4, how long until that one, is made? It's going to be another 10 years. Who knows? What are your thoughts though?
No, now I think it's going to be, because it's going to involve most likely Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. This probably has to be within a context or a span of 2 to 3 years. So it shouldn't take that long, especially because their storylines are not so, in depth. It's just, okay, how can Will Smith shoot 200 more bad guys? Similar to what we see with John Wick. How many bad guys can John Wick kill in this film as opposed to the last one? In this case, the same thing. How many bad guys or drug cartel people or anything like that? How many can you go ahead and shoot in the span of a 2-hour time frame with him and Martin Lawrence laughing it up all the way and trying to cut jokes along the way? So it shouldn't be that difficult to come up with something like that, because they're not going into heavy detail. They're not going to go ahead and throw out a whole bunch of effects at you, although they are getting a little bit pricier with those type of movies. I mean, we talked about it on the PCC Multiverse. They're getting to the $90-100 million range as far as the cost for this film. So it does have to earn about $350 million before you really can say, you know what, it's going to take home a profit. But I think it actually can at this point in time. It's, because of the great start that it has here domestically, I think it can actually reach to that point. So obviously it's, will be justified by Sony to go ahead and greenlight a sequel. I'm just, when it comes down to nostalgia plays, it's just hard for us out there as an audience to see which ones work and which ones don't. I mean, the ratings and reviews are similar to what we saw with the last Terminator, and that both films were marginally thought of well and things of that nature when you look at it on both Rotten Tomatoes and also Metacritic. But one hit while the other one was a massive failure. So it's kind of difficult to understand what these audiences are wanting to choose when it comes to nostalgia. But then again, it's probably just going to greenlight 3, 4, 5 more projects because Bad Boys did well. And that's the thing. For every one that does hit, you'll see 3 or 4 that don't. We see it all the time on television, and we talk about it all the time, where all these reboots and all these nostalgia plays get greenlit, and very few wind up being a success story. So it's kind of interesting to see how that goes. Doolittle, on the other hand, it didn't do as bad as people thought it would, but it's still only going to earn $30 million over the course of 4 days. Still not great, especially the fact that it cost almost $200 million to make, and it will probably never see a dime in profit, no matter how much it makes around the world. So that's a very disappointing number for Robert Downey Jr. and obviously the folks at Universal. But when it comes to the success story this weekend, it has to be all about the Bad Boys. And one last thing, when we touch upon the success of Bad Boys and Bad Boys 3, the one thing I want to ask you is it just because people, I think at this point in time in January, just needed, like we had talked about before, a palate cleanser, just something that it was not heavy at all, was light, was funny, had a little bit of action, just similar to what we saw with Hobbs and Shaw. Hobbs and Shaw was not going to earn any awards, but it was going to go ahead and meet that certain niche as far as those looking for just some light, a light actioneer who with a lot of jokes that just, has people going, you know what, I really enjoyed that flick. It's not going to be something I'm going to remember, but hey, it was just a lot of fun while it was there.
Wait, sorry, what movie? What movie are we talking about?
Bad Boys 3.
Oh,
I mean, because it came out at a time right after all those serious movies, such as 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Joker, Marriage Story, The Irishman, all these serious movies, and very little has come out in opposite of that. Star Wars and maybe Jumanji, you could say, is also a light popcorn flair as well, but there's not really too much to offset it. And this is the first real movie to come out that, after that period of time. So maybe that's the reason why it scored so well with audiences this weekend.
Yeah, well, it's just kind of a lighthearted pot. Sorry, I thought you had mentioned Hobbs and Shaw, so I was.
Well, it's like Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah,
Hobbs and Shaw came out at a time, and that's why it did so well, I think, was because of the fact in August, it was the only thing really come out at that point in time that was that type of pleasing popcorn fare that a lot of people like to go ahead and migrate to.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, it is a popcorn flick. I'd be interested to see what the demographics are of this film of people who went to go see it. But Bad Boys 2 was a fun ride. Like it's not a bad movie. Like it was quite enjoyable. But it's something that happened so long ago. I wasn't sure anyone would really care anymore. That being said, yeah,
I mean, similar to what we saw with Blade Runner 2049.
Right, but Blade Runner 2049 was such like a deep intellectual film that I can see why people be turned off by it. I personally loved it, and I know you did too, but with this is just kind of something, it's mind-numbing in a way, there's no like deep layered storyline. It's just about these two cops. It's kind of like Rush Hour, but with Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. So, it's just, I could see people going to see it just because it is a fun film. I'm just, again, I haven't seen any like advertising campaigns or Target or Walmart's putting out reprints of the first two films. So I'm just, I'm curious like how it's doing so well. And, do people really, what is the demographics of people going to see it? Is it young kids or is it people who grew up watching the ones in the 90s and the early 2000s?
That is something interesting to talk about as far as who is exactly watching this film as far as from an age group standpoint. Is it, like you said, young kids who haven't seen the film, who haven't seen the previous two that just thought this would be a really cool flick to see? Or is this people, or is the people that are the majority of people, is the majority of people going in, let's say, your age group or my age group that saw the movies 18 and 25 years ago that have a fond memory for it? So that's why they wanted to go ahead and return to the theater. So we'll have to wait and see what the demographics line up for. That'd be interesting to go ahead and follow up on. But you mentioned Rush Hour 4. I haven't heard anything definitive on that yet. I mean, that's been floating around for a long time as far as possibly reigniting that. It would be interesting to see now that Bad Boys 3 did so well. Could a Rush Hour 4 be not far behind?
Well, again, it's been talked about for a long time, and they tried to put out a series, right? If I remember correctly, is a Rush Hour series didn't do so well. I know there's an interview with Chris Tucker 5 or 6 months ago that he was talking about, hey, we're doing this, it's happening, the wheels are in motion, we're getting ready to make this film. But then again, since then we haven't heard anything about that. But when it does finally get made, I guarantee you it's not going to be a flop. It's going to be something that might not do gangbusters at the box office, but it'll be something that's definitely worth the money. So, is it worth it for a studio to put the time and effort into making something that only makes them a little bit of money, or are they really trying to make this one a hit?
Who knows? But I'll tell you what, it's be interesting to see. And we're not going to go ahead and be so dismissive next time around if that's the case for either Bad Boys 4 or Rush Hour 4, if that's the case, because I'll tell you what, we were proven wrong this time around, but we're going to be a little bit more apprehensive to go ahead and jump on the button to say this movie is going to be a failure just because it's a reboot or let's say a sequel to something that's been a long time away. So I'll tell you what, we're going to be a little bit more guarded in our expectations one way or the other when it comes to these nostalgia plays, because you know what, you never know, because you never know when the fans are going to come out and see something that they remember so fondly. What are your thoughts out there on Bad Boys 3? Did you enjoy it this weekend? We'd love to hear your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, let me give you the rest of the lineup for the show that's coming on today. Right after the break, we've got Colleen Hopwood from Pop Sockets. She's going to tell us about some great things going on with Pop Sockets, including something I've been waiting for a long time, so I can use Pop Sockets again on my phone. So you got to listen to that coming up right after the break. Right after that, it's Jessica Boggs starting with her part 2 of her January TV update to give us more info on what's going on with the cable networks and some streaming stuff as well. Plus, after that, at the halfway point, we've got Monique Peterson from Oral-B. She's going to be talking to us about the Oral-B IO. Jamie and I absolutely loved this electric toothbrush. And, people say it's just an electric toothbrush. It does a lot more than any other electric toothbrush we've ever seen. So she's going to talk about that coming up around the halfway point. Jessica Boggs will come back for just a few minutes with her January TV update. The third part, though, is the part I want everybody to say in advance. I apologize. It's me singing, but only for just a few seconds, because we're going to be testing out Roxy Mobile Karaoke later in the program with Mackenzie Prince. She's going to be talking about how you can go ahead and have your own karaoke right in your own car as well, just like James Corden does on his show. And then we're going to close out the show with Josh and I talking about the DC and Marvel universes getting a little bit closer with each other, getting a little bit closer, and when with with Crisis of Infinite Earths, and also with DC with Crisis of Infinite Earths, and also Marvel with the Morbius trailer. Both of them made inferences as far as bringing those universes from the film, from the movie, bringing those movie universes and comic book and TV universes a little bit closer together. We'll explain why coming up at the end of the show, and whether or not we like the way they did it or not. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're about to close out the show. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. I do want to thank, again, Colleen Hopwood from Pop Sockets, Monique Peterson from Oral-B, Mackenzie Price from Roxy Mobile Karaoke, and Jessica Boggs from the TV Ratings Guide for being a part of today's program. Before we go into our last topic of the day, my friend, again, I just want to apologize to you and the listeners out there for my voice. And just say, please, Josh, I hope this doesn't end our friendship.
I don't know. When it comes to our friendship, I still haven't found what I'm looking for,
Oh.
You see what I did there?
Yeah,
it's good. You'll laugh about it later. It's all right.
I'm sure I will. Well, hopefully no one out there, hopefully we didn't lose too much of the audience and subscribers out there. If you get a chance, though, please subscribe to our show so you can get the latest episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Or if you have any questions, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com, or even go ahead and send us a question or comment to us. Hopefully not one of my singing, please, if you don't mind, because I already know it's bad. As part of a 5-star review, you can go ahead and ask us any questions or upcoming topics you'd love to hear us talk about right here on the Pop Culture Cosmos. Before we head on out, my friend, just wanted to go ahead and talk to you real quick about the DC and Marvel universes. DC on the CW with their big crossover event, Crisis of Infinite Earths. There was a little thing that happened and Jessica Boggs and I talked about it, that Ezra Miller, who plays the Flash in the movies, got to meet the Barry Allen in the TV universe recently, as part of the Crisis of Infinite Earths. And in Marvel, the Morbius trailer just came out last week from Sony, and that in the trailer itself was a poster of Spider-Man, and also as well at the end, Michael Keaton, the Vulture, from the Spider-Man movie, from the first Spider-Man movie that came out, that was Spider-Man Far From Home, not Far From Home. What's the first Spider? Homecoming.
Homecoming, yeah.
Yeah. From Spider-Man Homecoming, he was actually part of the trailer at the end, which people were asking, does that mean the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Does that tie into Morbius and all that? And then with DC, they were talking about the same thing. Does that mean everything in the film universe and Justice League? Does that combine everything TV? So I want to talk to you, my friend, about this because it blew up on social media on both accounts. Are you okay with this? What were your thoughts when you were watching all this, what was going on? And do you like the fact that they made these universes just a little bit smaller on both the DC and the Marvel end?
I'm not okay with it. Like with what it really did for me as far as the DCU goes, it's like it really doubled down on the fact is like I didn't know what's going on with these heroes, what's going on with the Flash, what's going on with Justice League, what's going on with any of the film properties. And it kind of doubled down on the idea that like, hey, we're still working on this. This is still a thing. That's still a universe we care about. We're still hyping it up. And this also was preceded by news that the Flash film was still being worked on. It's a twist on Flashpoint that we haven't seen yet, and that's something that I'm really kind of excited about because like I'm one of the few that like I didn't think Justice League was the greatest film. I do like that universe, and it's something that I've been happy to see kind of go in the right direction finally. On the Marvel side of things, I think that Sony doesn't really, or Marvel doesn't really have a choice. If Sony wants to tie their heroes into this universe, they're going to have to deal with that because eventually Tom Holland and Spider-Man are going to go back to Sony whenever this deal is over, and they're going to have to work with that. These universes are going to be connected whether they like it or not. So, that's not to say that we're going to see Morbius facing off against Thor or anything, but, these universes are connected in their own right just because eventually Spider-Man will go back to Sony and we will see him in a Venom or a Carnage flick or even in Morbius or Kraven the Hunter. They don't really have a choice at this point because that's just the deal that they signed. When they took Tom Holland on, that's just what happened. So I'm not okay with it. I just want to see it happen cohesively.
But it's funny though. Just it seems to me like almost like when in the Marvel case, it seems like almost if you had a family reunion and there was this big secret you didn't want to tell grandma, and then cousin Joe over in the corner blurts it out. It seems to me like it's that when it concerns Sony actually just going ahead and doing that Michael Keaton thing, and people were tying in, saying, "Oh, that ties in the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe and all that." Oh my goodness! It's like. I would have felt more comfortable if it had been done within the context of a Marvel movie, I guess. That's what I pretty much wanted to say. It just seems kind of awkward when Sony does it. It's like Sony forcing all this stuff to happen. And I know they have the right to because they have the rights to the Vulture and they have the rights to Spider-Man and, the 900 superheroes that they have access to. But it just seems kind of awkward when they do it. It just seems like they want to go ahead and push their own agenda, which is obviously what they're trying to do. But in the long run, it doesn't. It just seems like there's somewhere Kevin Feige is just like has to grit his teeth because he's not going ahead and pulling all the strings when he wants to.
Well, that's like when they did that interview originally when they asked Amy Pascal, Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal were sitting next to each other, and the interviewer goes, "So does that mean Venom is part of the MCU?" And Amy Pascal goes, "Well, it runs, parallel to the MCU." And Kevin Feige kind of looks over at her like, "What?" I think that they don't really have a choice, No,
they don't. If Marvel wants Spider-Man, they have to play ball with Sony, and this is what happens when you play ball with Sony. You don't always get what you like. Especially talk about on the video game end, but that's another story, especially with E3 and all that they're skipping out on. But with the DC side, I will say it's a big benefit because the CW, they're still trying to find their audience, and it did improve ratings a little bit. The whole Crisis of Infinite Earths was a big win for them overall, and hopefully going forward, it'll help all these small CW superhero shows going forward say, hey. Maybe you'll get people more involved in watching it because they may want to go ahead and see if there's any more clues or inferences to things that are going on in the big DC film universe. So I kind of like that move to go ahead and just sneak that in there. And I thought that was something special for the fans. And I truly enjoyed that. And I truly am happy for the people that are really, followers of the DC universe on that. So I thought that was something that was really beneficial for the DC universe, and so I didn't have any problems with that one. I didn't have any problems with that one at all.
Yeah, I mean, both of these properties, like I don't really have an issue with. I just want to see them going in the right direction. And as for like Marvel, especially, like it's a it gets me excited because it's something new. It's something like different being added to a universe that, in my opinion, is feels like it might become stagnant, after the after Endgame. We haven't seen anything since Spider-Man, so we don't know what the world is like, but I fear what it might become. And with the prospect of like Sony kind of running alongside of it, it just goes to show that this universe is capable of growth.
That it is, my friend, and hopefully that growth will continue on both the DC and also the Marvel end, as long as Kevin Feige is a little bit more involved in the growth process, as it were. What are your thoughts out there on the Morbius trailer, the Crisis of Infinite Earths, and the DC and the Marvel universes in their own respective universes getting a little bit closer from their TV or their comic book end to their whole the Marvel Sony deal as far as that's concerned, and then also the Crisis of Infinite Earths combining or getting a little bit closer to the DCEU. The CW superhero shows getting a little bit closer to the DCEU. What are your thoughts out there? Let us know your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, it's been a great episode, my friend. I hope I can still call you my friend after listening to my voice. Any last thoughts on the way out, dare I say?
Will we be getting a rendition of Vertigo anytime soon?
Only if I'm paid for it. Only if I'm paid for it. And that has to be a lot of cash.
And my next question is, will you be sneaking a copy of that clip into all of our iTunes libraries while we're sleeping?
No, that won't be slipped out. I'll leave that to Bono, The Edge, and everybody else at YouTube to do that on their own.
All right. Well, we can still be friends then in that case.
Fair enough. I hope, like I said, I didn't lose too many listeners and subscribers on the way out. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And boy, especially on today's show, we thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great